weary buyer who will try to wrangle 4 seasoned sales professionals. To that end, I have asked them to give you 30 seconds, just 30 seconds of introduction to a little bit where they're from and an elevator pitch on their value proposition. So let's get rolling. Joey, start us off.
Hey guys, Joey Liner from Digital Media Solutions, Chief Revenue Officer, live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and biggest value prop is DMS is a big major lead generation group powered behind a bunch of people that focus on either traffic directly to form, which we call brand direct, or marketplace solutions would be leads that you could purchase from our properties in different verticals, mortgage, education, insurance, and so forth.
All right, Noah.
Hey everyone, my name is Noah Sniderman, EVP of Sales at Drips. At Drips, we help brands communicate at scale with consumers using what we call conversational texting. Really what we do is we focus on critical moments within the consumer journey where something as simple as talking to a representative, getting a consumer on the phone with them makes all the difference in the outcomes that are produced. So that's what we do at Drips.
All right, Noah's in Ohio where barbershops are open back up. Congratulations, Noah. All right, Ben.
Hey, thanks, Jay. Ben Sullivan, head of sales at Invoca. We provide call tracking and conversational analytics and help B2C marketers with one-to-one attribution down to keywords on what's driving quality sales calls, helping them identify service versus sales is one part of the business, and the other part on the conversational AI perspective at scale, being able to provide marketers and downstream folks in the call center insights into what's being said on the phone call itself so that they can better support their customers, either acquire better lifetime value customers or provide a better experience for the overall customers.
Excellent. All right, Matt, bring us home.
Actually sit just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Made famous by our Governor Kemp in this quarantine time. But just for those of you who don't know Jernaya, we help performance marketers of all shapes and sizes, whether you're creating leads, buying leads, selling leads, working in an agency or inside of a brand, to stay compliant and deliver timely and relevant interactions with your customers, ultimately the end consumers, driven mainly by behavioral data and insights. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, folks, we're going to keep this real. I want you to know that these are not ivory tower guys. So we're going to go around the horn real quick, and in the reverse order they just went, they're going to tell us the strangest thing they've done while on quarantine. Matt, go.
Yeah, I'm a father of 3 teenage boys, so I've had a good time with my 16-year-old telling him I could beat him in a foot race. So a lot of trash talking and lead up to when I finally had said race, and it was about a 300-meter race. I got through about 150 meters, and I couldn't really see him any further. So that was fun while it lasted, but it was embarrassing when it all came to be.
All right, Ben.
Yeah, father of 3 daughters, 2 in high school, 1 16-month-old. So the date afternoons or evenings with the missus is extremely important. We try and get out on a weekly basis to do that. So I'd say the strangest thing that we have done is ordered to go or curbside pickup from one of our favorite restaurants here in Denver, and actually then tailgated in their parking lot and ate our afternoon lunch, enjoying the sun, and at least from about 300 yards away, enjoying that food as well.
Excellent, excellent. All right, Noah.
Jeez. Mine was actually strange. I played virtual Cards Against Humanity with my in-laws, and it got weird. Some of the answers, I have to tell you.
Yeah, it sounds like a lesson learned. Joey, what about you?
Don't do it.
Yeah, I'll follow your advice there. We bought a bunch of material for a home improvement project right before lockdown. We just think that lockdown was a possibility. So we had floors, wound up getting our kitchen redone, and we wanted to get it done. We had to make the decision pretty quickly if we were going to let these contractors in our house. We took the gamble, got it done pretty quickly, but it was definitely pretty weird. They were in masks, had to wash their hands frequently in front of us. It was very weird.
All right. Well, Matt, you reminded me the beginning of quarantine. I bought my 14-year-old son a pull-up bar. He challenges me daily, and he has gone from being able to do 12 pull-ups at the beginning of the quarantine to 28 at a time without stopping. I will not be rising to that challenge. I'm worried I would pull it down off the wall. All right. Let's dive right into some little bit meatier conversation here. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of economic impacts in the midst of the coronavirus threat and the response to it. And I'm just interested, I'm in the insurance industry, so I have that point of view. But what are you guys seeing in terms of industries and sectors expanding and contracting? Joey, why don't you take that one for us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. DMS we're pretty well diversified in 15 different categories or so. So I definitely been able to have a good eye of where marketing dollars are coming in or where there's been some contraction. So like you said, Jay, the insurance space for us, and I think a lot of folks in the industry has been hot, auto, life, health, anywhere where the consumer can save a buck, in regards to their insurance bills and the premiums that they're paying. So we've seen a ton of high intent activity there, especially with a lot of the messaging on a lot of companies doing rebates and dividends back to the consumer. Aftermarket auto, auto warranty, auto refi, also very, very, very prominent now because new car sales are down and they will continue to be down. So we have a big push or a focus for us there. And debt settlement, credit card debt, bankruptcy, just a fact of life, credit card debt's racking up at astronomical scale, even before the crisis. So we're seeing consumers asking for relief, and looking for, ways to save, to get that back in check. Lastly, online education. There's 30 million consumers plus sitting around thinking, what am I going to do next? Just like after the Great Recession, a lot of folks, went back to school online. Now there's a lot more institutions that have, a better infrastructure to support online learning. So I think there's just been a lot more activity there. Industries that have kind of been on hold. The personal loan space has been on hold. It's privatized industry, not much lending's going on there today. The mortgage industry having overall liquidity issues between mortgage originators and servicers and who's going to be responsible for that cash bounce. High intent, consumers want to save money in refinancing, but just the liquidity issues are, it's slowly starting to work itself out, but not at the level of what coming into the year we thought it was a massive refinance wave. And then lastly, I would say overall, like the travel industry, of course, is just, it's on hold, and, it's just sad, but it's just a reality and who knows when that will come back. So that's just kind of my state of the union there, Jay.
That's interesting. Way to finish there. My wife is actually a travel agent, so we have experienced that firsthand. And we're doing a virtual Greek Isles cruise overview tomorrow night with her clients, just kind of queuing it up for the future. So we'll get to some of the tactics that you guys are using to prompt it. That's one saleswoman in my life and what she's doing. Noah, any other perspective on sectors that are flexing or retreating?
Yeah, I think Joey hit it right to most extent. I'd say healthcare is an interesting one, and when you look at all these sectors, the area that they're starting to invest money in is obviously where they've contracted, but they're trying to become resilient. A lot of big Fortune 500 brands, and when you think about things like travel, they have a lot of leads and pent up demand that they need to get back on the phone. So if you're a cruise line or you're a major travel operator, you had a lot of people that had book plans and they canceled. And so they're looking for different ways to more efficiently and effectively communicate. So we're seeing companies really go above and beyond from a CRM and a lead perspective of being thoughtful about their approaches. So I would say not having a great answer after Joey just spelled out the entire market. I would go into the resiliency angle that looking at how they're trying to expand while the industry's collapsing, if you will, right? On top of them.
Yeah. That's actually great to bring up the topic of resiliency and frankly, adaptation. this format is a little bit different. I don't know that I've ever been a part of a virtual panel when you are folks that are used to being in front of people. There's maybe not new tools, but existing tools that we're using in a new way or we're finally using. So Ben, I'm gonna put you on the spot and ask you, what's the best tool that you've found and began using since this all happened mid-March?
Yeah, well, they're called tools for a reason. It's funny because I spent probably 10 years of my career selling collaboration software as well as webinar technology, and I never thought that I'd be actually using them full time to try and conduct business. At every point during the day, not only engaging with prospects and existing customers, but also internally. I think obviously Zoom has completely blown up. I think it's a super intuitive tool. They went from 10 million users a day to 300 million users a day. We use Blue Jeans as an organization, but the flavor I think is Zoom. There's a lot of go-to in different types of technologies that everyone is adopting. So it's not just one person saying, hey, we're going to do it this way. A lot of folks are just engaging because this is the way they need to engage to get business done. Either educate themselves with existing customers or sell or provide partnerships with new prospects. So it's definitely changed the way we've done business from email. We have external Slack groups as well. So we have existing customers on Slack that help them from an implementation perspective and to work with our CSMs. Texting, is I think a sensitive topic for some older gentlemen like myself, but it's become more of mainstream depending on the person that you're working with. You kind of take cues from them, at least we do with our customers. If they enjoy text, great. If it's during certain hours, fine. But there is some sensitivity, I think, around how you engage, but and then obviously the phone calls, right? But a lot of it comes at you real fast. You can fire up these meetings within seconds, and because we're not on planes and we're not in the physical locations, I feel we're getting a lot. There's a lot of productivity gains, albeit from a distance.
Yeah, that's funny when you talk about. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was just going to pile on, Ben. The interesting one that you mentioned was Slack, right? We've debated doing the same with our customers and allowing direct interactivity on Slack. It's just uncharted waters for understanding, response times and things. You have Slack, it's so, real time. We want to do that in a way that customers, expectations are managed and respected. But the other side note that I think is just fascinating with the Zoom commentary is with little ones at home trying to school from home, just how quick they're coming up to speed on these kinds of tools way before we ever did. So there's never a shortage of funny, remote meeting memes out there, but I think maybe we're going to get past that with the new generation now pretty savvy on it.
Yeah, Matt, your point I think is well taken. What we are finding, I don't think any meeting starts on time. Everyone's got bandwidth or technical issues, so it's always at least 5 minutes or 10 minutes after the fact, and there's more sensitivity or understanding when the network goes down or you're not getting back to someone in real time or whatnot. So I think there's a bit more patience even in this unprecedented. People are sort of losing it out there now.
All economic cycles, I will say we are when customers allow, we love taking screen grabs of when we're having customer meetings virtually. I think more people are taking the opportunity to turn their cameras on, right? Where traditionally in normal times, people wouldn't be so forthcoming to flip their video on. So we're just conditioning everybody to be a little bit more relaxed and join the session no matter what your personal situation is at home. So that's been one, refreshing change from all this.
All right, let's. It's funny, Ben, when you talked about texting and the sensitivity surrounding that. My 19-year-old daughter has told me that the use of punctuation in texting is passive aggressive. So I think my generation is showing because I use grammar and punctuation when I
get called out still for double space bar after the period, Jay. So tells you.
Oh wow! I'm proud of you. Of course, it's a double space. Hey, Joey, we got a follow-up question on
Yeah.
your very thorough, yet you missed a spot in the industry overview.
I did miss a
So I'm
spot.
going to ask you to answer two questions, and maybe they're related because you mentioned having a variety of home services people in your home. So Bob asked a follow-up question. What about the home service industry? Pest control. There's been on the Nextdoor app in my neighborhood, there's been a lot of controversy about Mosquito Joe, who is going door to door offering mosquito services.
Claiming it.
He's getting within 6 feet of the doorknob and he's not wearing a mask. It's shocking. So let's talk a little bit about home services and what you're seeing, especially in online home services marketing. But I think one of the things that as we've all been talking about how we're adapting, I'm curious, are there any things that you haven't been able to pull off? Are there limitations to this that you found that you just can't achieve through some technology or some sort of adaptation?
Yes. Awesome. Glad to answer both. Thanks, Jay. Sorry, Bob, you're right. Obviously there's tremendous intent and activity going on in the home services space, home security, home warranty, roofing, windows. I think it's, a lot of people that if they feel comfortable with having those contractors like Jay talked about coming to their homes, some of the jobs can be done outside. Some of them obviously have to be done through the property and source. But the intent level is up that the consumer can save some money and get, something new out of it. I think it's there's definitely a lot of activity out there. See it in leads and calls for sure. And I think it will continue to rise as people still put more into their home. In the second part of the question, Jay, for me personally, and I think a lot of people here too, is that, been very productive through Zoom and a lot of the technology mentioned, but I do miss the in-person conferences. At LeadsCon is our Super Bowl, everybody in the industry being on site, in person, the Jornaya conference, Softview conference, very big shows that, that I've put a lot of my personal time and sweat equity into, just, without speed dating, being able to get to spend some quality time with people and have quantifiable meetings, where you can come back out of it. It's not just about the dinners or the parties. It's about obviously, sitting down and being personal with somebody. And I'm a people person. I love conveying the emotion and passion behind what I do. And I've been able to do that for a very long time. So I miss it, but I know there'll be a time for it, hopefully, down the line. So I know it'll be treated much differently too. So, I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Hey, Noah, let's hear from you on that sort of interpersonal element. I'd just like to hear how you and your team are holding up. How is this impacting people, especially for you, because you have a relatively short tenure there, don't you?
Yeah, I joined 2 months ago. So what a great way to start a head of sales type of job. And I think it's been kind of ups and downs. So like Joey said, I feed off of personal interaction, and I love to be in the room to have those conversations, whether it's a buyer like yourself or my other employees, just to kind of feed off of that. But on the other side, in terms of this being positive, we've gotten a lot of time back in our day to be able to do a lot of types of things. And when you join an organization that's growing like Drips, that needs that we've made some, I'd say, structural changes, selling enterprise, et cetera, we've had to make a lot of changes, and communicate a lot and plan a lot. And we've had that opportunity to do it and that time to do it. Whereas if I were on planes all day long, that would be really tough. And I can guarantee you I would have been on planes like crazy in those first 2 months. So I'm somewhat thankful for that. We've used that time to retool and to up our messaging, et cetera. And I think the other thing in terms of a challenge that's been kind of interesting for me is you really have to sharpen your message. And you don't have the same type of give, as Joey kind of said, when we're staying in a room, we can talk, I can kind of feel a little bit more. And it's across the board, but when you're talking, whether you're communicating a value proposition or you're citing some stats, you really have to be sharp. There's a lot less forgiveness in this world now. And I think across the board, that creates the right type of tension for all of us to level our game up a little bit. So that's been personally humbling for me, quite frankly, whether it's doing a webinar like this or just getting on the phone with a customer and maybe not knowing the answer as well as I would, Jay.
That's good. It sounds like there's a market opportunity out there for a bandwidth disruptor, like when you get stuck, somebody asks you a question you can't answer, a little button you can push that messes up your bandwidth. Somebody check into that. Let's keep the agenda moving here. So we started talking a little bit about some sales strategies there, and the intention here is to take us directly into sales strategies, and we're going to do that in a second. But I think it's good here to have another around the horn, and we're going to do this quickly again. And I'm going to ask a question, and then we're going to go Noah, Joey, Ben, and Matt. All right, here's the question. How many rolls of toilet paper do you have on hand per household member? And are you feeling toilet paper secure or toilet paper threatened? Noah. You're muted, Noah. Oh, you dropped the ball.
17.5, I am secure.
All right, Joey.
We have 15. We feel pretty secure, 15 per person.
All right.
Yeah, I buy them in the packs of 30, and every Sunday I drop they're like 6-packs, 5 6-packs. I drop one off in each girl's, the big girl, the missus, and the 2 older girls at their doorstep, outside of their room. So I'm feeling a little insecure on the toilet paper stash.
Yeah,
all right, Matt.
We have a healthy amount. I'd say we have at least 10 rolls per individual, but that doesn't stop my wife from buying her single allotment every time she sees it on the shelf. So try not to hoard, but I think scary proposition to be on the outside of that one.
Yeah, we're in my household, we actually have enough that they're complaining about the qualitative differences of the toilet paper. So I'm gonna start actually holding some back on them and let them appreciate something there. All right, let's get back to business here. Thank you for that brief diversion. Karen actually asked a question, that I think is very timely, and I'm going to tie it in with something that we talked about ahead of time here. But I can't get back to Mike. You're going to have to tell me. The gist of it was, what are your workarounds to initiating outreach, that initial contact with customer? How have you adapted? And let's go ahead and let me ask Matt to start this one out. What's different now compared to what you're used to in terms of customer outreach?
Yeah, well, obviously it's, we talked about it beforehand, and it's a little bit overly stated at this point, but you definitely have to have empathy. And I think for any customer interaction you have now, there's a little bit more of a nice ease into that conversation, because everybody you talk to might have a different perspective or be going through different dynamics right now. So we've been very much in tune with, we want to reach out with something valuable to add in every interaction at this point, versus hey, I'm going to plow through because it's my job to go out and touch people and get conversations started. So we've been very fortunate, just given the line of work we're in, to have a lot of insights industry-wide. Joey summarized a lot of that at the start of this call. We've entertained some great discussions, both one-on-one and in small group settings, with customers who are just eager to understand if their circumstance is exactly like their peers or how different it is. And, information's changing, literally slowed down a little bit lately, but, literally by the day, things are changing. So those are the things we start with. And then where we've really been trying to figure out how we lean into just brand new dialogues, which I think is where the question stemmed from, and how do you network into those things? For us, we just try to really disarm the situation. Everything we do isn't done in days and weeks. It's done in months and quarters at a time. So with people finding themselves trying to keep sane and low anxiety, we don't try to push any kind of urgency. It's more of, hey, let us educate, or let's get educated on your current situation. And as we pull out of this thing together, we'll be ready, and we'll be in business for the long term to hopefully get together on something that makes sense. The only other thing I would say for the question in the chat, we still lean heavily on handwritten personal communications, and it's something that has served me well through my career, and the team has embraced that. So we try to do that again and make it a completely natural part of our exercise.
That's actually a great point. Handwritten communication. I'm gonna show my hand a little bit. It means something when somebody's taking the time to send handwritten communication, or even just an honest follow-up on something. If you if you're in one of those calls that Noah was talking about, and you don't have a statistic at the hand, I think there's a lot to be said for being humble and admitting that you're not perfect, that you don't always have the answer, but it shows a lot that you're willing to follow up, be humble, and get the answer eventually with that slice of humble pie. So Noah, I'm going to give you a chance to add any observations that you have on outreach and sort of how you make that initial connection with potential clients.
Yeah, I think in the earlier comments, we talked about resiliency and sharpening your message, which I think is really important when it comes to creating demand for your service, even more now than ever, right? Because more people are out there and companies are becoming resilient. And with that, we're really encouraging what we call account planning to be done, which is less about us going out and talking about drips and more about making sure we really understand from an empathy standpoint what companies are doing, why they're doing it. Because during these times, there's a lot of interesting things going on, right? If you're a healthcare company, you're trying to rebook patients. If you're a travel company, you're trying to rebook people that were back there. There's a lot of new things going on. And so when you want to create demand, if you can understand a lot of the things that are going on in today's world for these buyers, that's just super important. And if you could illustrate it better. So we've been trying to be less spray and pray and more being very thoughtful about why we think we'd be important and worthy of consideration to prospective buyers out there. So I think the underlying tone is empathy and understanding that. And empathy is not necessarily feeling bad by any means. It's really understanding where this company is trying to go and being part of that solution and not the problem.
All right, thanks, Noah. And it's interesting. Obviously, as a buyer, I get a lot of the receiving of spray and pray. Folks, it doesn't work. All right, Ben, both of them mentioned the word empathy, and it looked like someone poked you in the rib with a sharp object. So I would like to follow up with you on what is it exactly that you have against empathy?
Nothing, actually. That was a good one, Jay. No, it's interesting. I was a sociology major back in college, and I think it's helped me in this profession when you partner with prospects, and ultimately they become your partners. And in some of the partnerships I've forged, I've become executors of their will. I don't think empathy necessarily is anything that you say. It's how you listen. Seek first to understand. We still and will always, with more greenhorn sales folks, teach them to not show up and throw up, right? Like you want to understand the strategy at a business level. You want to understand what is your challenge and what are the things that keep you up at night. On your whiteboard of your 10 objectives for the quarter or for the year, how are you trending against those goals? And my favorite is if you had a magic wand and you could do anything you wanted, like what would that be? And listen, like really listen and ask more questions, clarifying questions, make sure you get down to the center of the onion, because we all come to the table or the virtual environment with different perspectives. We were all brought up in different ways. We all see the world very differently. And sometimes I think we are conditioned to hear things a certain way. And so to pause and really listen and again, over communicate, communicate to excess helps a lot when you're starting to uncover what are the major business objectives today that you're trying to accomplish as an organization. And then as you have those conversations, it may turn out that the solution I have today for you doesn't make sense at this moment in time, right? So how can you also then be patient and then, find other avenues or other partnerships or other folks to come and be a trusted advisor. We have found from a technical perspective, using intent data to not spray and pray, to then send thought leadership to folks around call data. Is it important? Forrester briefs, G2 crowd, those types of things. It arms, our champions and ultimately, the C-level folks in the organizations to be heroes, to digest information they didn't know was available without a pushy, someone like me calling and badgering. And what we're finding is we're seeing a lot more hand raisers that we can then get them into our sales process, sort of outreach process. And then it starts by listening.
Hey,
That's
Jay.
great. All right. Both Matt and Joey want to interact here. So I'm going to ask Matt to take first punch here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Ben's comment more about the traditional saying of show up and throw up. But I will say it is a challenge with how people communicate today, because most times people want you to just give them the download quickly so they can move on. And the seek to understand part is really a lost art, I think, in getting the trust established. And Jay, I'd ask you to chime in on this because I know you believe in it wholeheartedly. But how do you make your way through that discussion if somebody's still a little bit, to Ben's point, a little green on it, trying to go there with you and do it well in a way that you respect and admire, even if they're not the best at it right out of the gate, right? Because that's the secret to, if I'm in front of you, I can probably manage that conversation a lot more handily than if I'm, virtual or over the phone.
Yeah, so I'll answer, but Joey, do you have something to add there?
Yeah, if you want, feel free to, or I can jump in either way.
Yeah, let me jump in because I want to dovetail directly on what Matt said, and frankly, I felt a little bit guilty right there. So first of all, let me say that I didn't set Ben up. We'd actually talked about empathy and its use and frankly abuse ahead of time. So Ben was prepared. I didn't catch him off guard because the reality is there's nothing less appealing than packaged empathy. Something that you went to the empathy store, pulled it off the shelf, and you acted like you cared and you didn't. So I will tell you, false empathy is as disarming as genuine empathy is. False empathy will cause me to put up defenses so quickly. I actually have a gatekeeper. Some of you may have met her. You will never get past her if I route you through her. So the reality is I receive a bunch of really unsolicited offers. And frankly, my typical protocol is give me, what's your value prop? Why should I pay attention? And I'm looking for, is there something different? Do you understand my business in a unique way? Have you come up with a unique solution? But I'm looking to get that answer quickly. So you have to earn the right to spend 30 minutes, an hour of my life with me to get to know me and my business challenges. So it's definitely it's a fine line to walk because you want the time to listen. I want to give you the time to listen, but I got to know that that's going to be time well spent, and you have to be somebody who's genuine. So that's from a buyer perspective. So Joey, I'm going to ask you to interact with that. But one thing in particular I want to hear from you. I asked you all to do a 30-second elevator value prop pitch. Noah's talked about the importance of sharpening your message. When is it just appropriate to spill it and say, this is what I can do for you, and go back to your pitch? So interact with all that for us.
Well, and I think there's been a lot of great perspective here to the topic. I mean, if you go on LinkedIn and you look at, you do a search for empathy, there's probably a gazillion posts, like whether it's from a sales coach or trainer or somebody just providing advice or guidance. And like you're right, the term is being overused. And I think that the reality, is like I said, what I tell my team is like, do your research, take the time to know exactly who you're speaking to, what's going on with their company, look at any articles or press releases. Are you have any mutual connections? Like make it, like I said, a personable, meaningful conversation. Like if you get 30 minutes with Jay booked up, like plan out ahead of time to let Jay speak 20 minutes at a time, that 2/3, ratio. Listen, Mike typed it. Listen is such a lost art for salespeople, because if I get to you through your gatekeeper and I'm able to, I don't want to just jam a 30-second pitch down your throat. I want to ask you questions to keep you engaged with me. So ultimately, by the time we get off the conversation, we're not even discussing price. We're not discussing, specifics on like, okay, get it out, Joey. It's like, you got a good idea who I am, what I do, what I'm representing, and if I can address your pain point. Everybody has different pain points. And the only thing I'd add differently to what has been discussed is if you do that research ahead of time, you'll know that there's certain industries that we've identified that are spending right now, that do have the ability to spend and push pedal to the metal. And there's certain industries that you absolutely do not want to ask for budget by any means. And you just want to build a relationship. So know your goal ahead of the call. You know, are you just trying to build a relationship, you know, for the long term? Absolutely. Or are you trying to jump in right now and try to get to the end of Q2 budget? So map out exactly what you have in mind. Don't just jam in the 30-second pitch, and use the phone. Like a lot of our prospects have told us recently that we actually went and found their cell phone numbers and called them, where everybody's just jamming emails down each other's throats. So try to differentiate yourself by getting through on the phone if you can, because it'll separate yourself from just another email in the inbox.
All right, excellent. Noah remembered that he already had his one mute penalty and unmuted after raising his hand, so we're going to let him have the floor.
No, I think I'd love your perspective on this, Jay, but you know, knowing the product that you're selling and the types of cycle goes down, I always feel like having a mutual understanding between you and the customer of where we are in the sales cycle, where we are in the stage, and what we want to get out of that call is really important. So if I'm prospecting you, Jay, like I don't need to do much. All I need to do is get you interested, right? That's what's the important part. I don't need to sell you all of the wares that we have and all the different types of things. To me, there's like one point, and then when we get on a first call together, and it's in this day and age, it's going to be a call, right? It's not going to be a meeting. Let's get on the same ground of, hey, we're just here to qualify. That's what we want to do today. And if you think this is interesting, if this is something you want to learn more about, this is going to be this. I think a lot of people fail to do that very effectively, which is classically called setting the agenda, right? And it's not a sales tactic. It's a good mutual approach to managing business. I'd love your opinion on that, but I think that I feel like people just tend to get in there and then start like saying all the things they do, and they want you to figure it all out as a result, Jay. And I don't think I think breathe, take a moment, and understand that this is like more than likely not going to happen over the course of days. It's going to be weeks, months to get through this process.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
No, I was just, Jay, you said it earlier, which, you know, you couldn't have said it better. It's, if you don't know the answer to something, that's okay. And a lot of times I spend with my teams and they get into these pleaser modes, right? Where for those of you that are sales professionals, and there's the litany of different sales methodologies, but the one that spoke to me naturally coming up through my career was the challenger one. Because to your point, Jay, I think knowing you, what little I do at this stage of our relationship, I'm sure you appreciate somebody that can challenge you in good ways, that makes you smarter. And that's not just me trying to yes you to death or pretend that I have all the answers when I don't. We see it a lot when it comes to solutioning, right? Can your solution do this? Can you do that? And it's like, people are afraid to say no. No, it doesn't do that. It does the things I told you, but those are great ideas. Let me take those back to the shop. So I just think that honesty, that's what builds the trust. This person's not going to just tell me what they think I want to hear all the time. And that naturally evolves into a good, challenging relationship, which makes us both better in the end.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the same with every buyer, but just following up on Noah, I'm and really some of what Joey said, you know, your imagination that I have 2 or 3 really clear and well-defined pain points that I can just relay to you on a PowerPoint slide, you know, that's just not the case. I've got hundreds of pain points and, you know, a dozen different people that I interact with on the prioritization of those pain points and what's the most important and what's matter. And I mean, I'm not a B2B salesperson like you, but I have responsibility for making sure that revenue grows at the general. So I'm looking for that. This is not an RFP, but I'm looking for somebody that can come alongside me as a partner. I don't need a vendor. I don't need a salesperson. I need business partners that can help me achieve my objectives, and understanding that. And again, building the relationship that causes me to believe that you can actually help me takes time. And again, the second that you pull something out that is canned, you know, show me a deck that you haven't correctly identified me as the buyer, and you still showed me an insurance company you called on last week. Again, I'm actually really forgiving. I was at dinner a couple months ago, and the waiter knocked an entire glass of red wine onto my pants probably an hour and a half before I had to board a flight. So, and it was a 1-day trip. So fortunately I had workout clothes in my bag, but nonetheless, I'm a forgiving person, but in a sales cycle, I've got to know that you are actually looking to help me solve a problem. So the problem we have now is we have about 18 minutes left, and I think I have more than 18 minutes of questions and answers. So I don't want to shortcut this though, because I think an important component of what we've been talking a lot about prospecting, I want to hear about what you're doing differently. How are you adjusting as it relates to current customers and customers who are already spending money? So maybe Matt, jump in on that a little bit.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have a lot of great current customers who I think are doing the things that you just emphasized, which is they're in it for the long haul and they're looking for a partner who's going to stay with them in good times and in bad. So we are showing up to every customer conversation prepared to solve whatever circumstance is presented, but we've been pleasantly surprised with most of our customers that we're still thinking further out and trying to make progress in our ongoing projects. With net new customers, I think that's the real question is, can we continue to drive really meaningful relationships completely virtually and not with the opportunity, like Joey mentioned, to have really meaningful interactions in person? And so we're navigating that, but the situation with that is we're all in it together. So just like you're somebody who might have any one of us or our team show up and try to engage and partner with you, everybody's trying to do that and make sure that we're doing that as best as possible. And again, disarming right up front. Like, we're not going to ask you to contract with us or sign something in a matter of days or weeks. Let's get to know each other. We'll make sure it's meaningful time spent together, covering off on all those fundamentals you mentioned, and hopefully look up 3 to 4 months from now and we're well on a good pace and cadence to take business on when you're ready to give it to us. So, all things considered, we're pretty grateful for the circumstance we're navigating through.
Cool. Hey Ben, just real quick, talk about balance between the effort and internal resource devotion to prospecting versus servicing current customers. Has the balance shifted in this time? Kind of give me just sort of a 30,000 foot view on that.
Yeah, good question. It's shifted at a company level. So when this all went down in the beginning of March, we reprioritized our top 10 goals for the year. And the number one goal was, first, your physical and mental well-being of every employee that we have within the company. Number 2, right after that, when you're physically well and mentally well, focused on our existing customers. Right, it's really, really hard to bring on a new customer. It's a little bit easier, right, to keep the customers that we have. So at a tactical level, when we saw the demand shock from an inbound lead flow and engagement with certain verticals as this sort of upheaval happened and contact centers moved thousands of people to remote working, we had less for our BDRs or SDRs, our appointment setters, to do. So we put them in our customer marketing, in our customer success organizations, where they actually went out and digested on behalf of our large brands all the data that typically those marketers would digest. They just didn't have the cycles. They were asked to answer calls in some instances. And so we helped start pushing out what I would say kind of light, free professional services that were providing really critical insights to some of these businesses. As an example, very, very large home security company here in the US, we found by looking at their data that 30% of their inbound calls, their agents were canceling the appointments instead of rescheduling those appointments for a month or 2 out. And so they were able to take that information, go to the contact center, and impact within a day, make sure all the agents understood, like, you don't cancel the appointments, you reschedule them for a future date. So just being able to help in that manner, we believe we're playing the long game. We're not going to come back and charge people for that. Like, we want to partner over the long run, and it's what we do today, where we believe our customers will remember tomorrow and for the years to come.
Yeah, I see a lot of nodding heads, so we're going to keep moving. Ben, and I want you to hang on to the mic, the virtual mic. Let me just hand it back to you. Talk a little bit about that. And I think, so I see nodding heads that basically everybody says, you know what, we're really making sure that we we capitalize on existing relationships. New relationships are hard, maybe not giving up on, but certainly a shift in priorities. But let's talk about creativity and how are you, and let's try to get, you know, quick answers from everybody on this. How are you adapting in creative ways to meet customer needs, whether it's, I know somebody brought up, you know, contract buyouts or free services that you'd otherwise charge for. Talk a little bit about that, and let's try to keep this brief because I'd like to hear from everybody. So go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, real quick. So a couple things. We never like to lead with price, right? So, but we have a huge, book of healthcare providers, and as soon as they were overrun, right, with people calling in from a COVID perspective. So we gave them some of our conversational AI technologies at no cost so that they could ascertain who's calling from what. Are they an existing customer, a new customer? So that it actually helped them priority route calls around to decrease the 4-hour wait time that people were happening. So that was one example where we were actually giving technology at no cost, especially in the areas like telecommunications and healthcare that are getting hit the hardest. 70% of the folks we talk to are new to call tracking. It's not a line item in their budget, right? We're an enterprise software provider. We don't do free trials, but we have started to do free trials, right? Here, we want you to understand our technology. We're going to work with our partner at Google and your agency to help you so that we can show an ROI or a business impact. So later, right, like next month, next quarter, next year, these seeds will be planted to again, you know, sort of do good while we're doing well. And then finally, a more tactical contract buyouts. We've seen that a few times with some of the folks that are using existing competitive services, and that's something that we're absolutely open to engaging with. And typically, there's some financial benefit, right, to the person who's going to actually move over and become a partner with us.
All right. Any other quick thoughts on just creativity and how you're meeting existing customer needs? Joe, go ahead. You're nodding.
Yeah, sure. I could jump in. So simply put, I just tell the contacts that I'm working with that, you know, we want to make them look really good for going on a limb and bringing us on and giving us budget during these times, you know, and because typically if we're in a meeting or we talked about it earlier, we're going to visit, do a big pitch to the general, it's a group of people or it's a committee type approach. And if I'm working with you one-on-one, Jay, and I've earned your trust, I want to prove to you that I can make you look good for giving me the chance to come on board. How do we do that? We will give you specific, you know, it's easy to sell you a lead, right? It's easy to sell you a click, but how can I work with you and give you the tools to make you look good, like running a lot of analytical reports in Looker and making you know, whether they're heat maps or disposition data, so it makes, you can pass that upstream. Another way to do it too is the commitment to right pricing. So I think Ben said, like, never just lead with price or static pricing, but being able to be flexible with clients, like after you're doing a launch, being able to get their feedback and take that feedback and after a 2-week or enough statistical significance on the test and putting your money where your mouth is, like backing it up and saying, oh, this lead shouldn't be worth $18. It should be worth $15.50, and showing them scorecards with other clients, but taking out the client name and saying, this is real data that we did when a client actually took the time to share the data back with us. This is a right pricing scenario that we committed to. So if you commit to sending me this data, this is what I'm willing to do with you so we can build a trusted partnership through this time. You don't have time to sign up 10, 20, 30 different vendors. You want to try to find a couple strategic partners. You don't have all the resources that you did at the office. So here's what I can do to help you and, you know, make you look good, Jay.
All right. Well, we have 10 minutes left and the apocalypse is upon us. I just heard a salesperson correctly use statistical significance in a sentence. So we're going to keep moving. Matt, I'm going to ask you, so the whole idea here was to talk about sales strategies for all economic cycles. We've talked a lot about the current economic cycle, and I know that there have been themes that have played through this. So we're going to ask, 4 more questions. Matt, you're going to lead us off, and I want to contrast, has anything changed in the current economic cycle, and what's going to last? So Matt, let's talk first about leadership. Has anything changed in your leadership? And then as a corollary to that, what's enduring and sort of timeless about how you lead people?
And how they've reset on their business, which is, hey, we want the health and mental state of all our employees first and foremost as we navigate quote unquote uncertain times. But once you get back to, okay, we're all at work and we're trying to get meaningful work done, I think independent of any economic cycle, it's just resetting on a lot of the things, Jay, that we've been talking about here. Like, what does a customer appreciate? What kind of interactions are going to be bringing something to the table of value to them? And that's how real business gets done versus just forcing the issue. We use the terminology give to give all the time. It's like, you can't be calling up looking for something in return on everything that you talk to a customer prospect about. It's like, go out there. We believe we've got something valuable to add to the equation. Go engage, and hopefully you'll find your way to the customer seeing it that way, and there'll be some good challenges along the way. But that's what I would say. Our leadership really hasn't changed. It's just we've stayed true to some of our culture and our integrity in terms of how we're trying to drive the teams.
All right, excellent. Joey, let's jump to you and let's talk about recruiting. What are the new ways that you're thinking about recruiting salespeople, and what's unchanging in terms of sales recruitment?
So I'm glad you asked me that one, just because I think it'll complement well around the topic. I mean, it's, for us, like Ben said, you have to protect your business, after you protect yourself and your family. And so sales folks traditionally are spending a lot more time with their accounts in the trenches, just doing everything they can to protect their accounts. So for us recruiting, I'm super excited to hire this next wave of kids coming out of college right now. They're coming out to unemployment rates of 15% plus. I think they're going to be hungry, super motivated, grateful to get a job. They're being, hopefully the last month or two, they've been extra trained to be prepared that you may be working for a company that's remote. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff through Zoom, and they probably did that through their remaining semester of school. So I think that for prospecting, and outreach, I'm excited to work with this movement of folks that are, or folks that have just been laid off, like service workers or waiters. I think that, be grateful to get a job and say, hey, this may be a time for me to change what I'm doing. And I think we'll just see that motivational drive that'll inspire and spread throughout the company as we all start to be able to hire again. And because they have good stories to tell, real stories to tell that will hit home. And I think that's what's going to drive future business.
Excellent. All right, Noah, I'm coming to you next. Let's talk about training and coaching. Obviously, this has been a lot about adaptation. For you, it's adapting not just to a new situation, but it's also adapting to an entirely new economic situation. So what have you adapted about how you train and coach, and what are the things that you're going to be unwavering on?
Oh my gosh. There's so many ways I could answer that, Jay. I mean, I serve to the founders of the company, but then also, we have a team, and I think the biggest part is over the last several weeks has been figuring out how we want to go to market and making that shift. And so we've had an intensive focus on changing process. And so my biggest thing has been trying to serve up a level of patience with that. And we're taking some folks who are used to a very short sales cycle and moving into more of an enterprise sales cycle, and that's not trivial for a lot of team members who have been very, very successful in the past when it's coming to selling to an organization like yourself, and so that's been I think a tremendous challenge, and what I'm not willing to waver on is fundamentals in terms of enterprise selling, because I don't think that changes even in this environment. That we need to be on mutual ground with customers in terms of the buying process. We need to be mutual ground of what we're trying to accomplish. And things like, we call it internally now a joint execution plan. This is something we've been teaching our team. It's a fundamental, and it's not novel by any means, but it's putting together a project plan with our buyers on, this is what's going to happen. This is what's in front of you as the buyer, and this is what's in front of us, and let's get on mutual ground. And so when it comes to leading, one is we're bringing a lot of best practices to the table. Two is we're being patient, and three is not wavering on things that are fundamental, like getting on the same page as our customers in terms of what's standing in their way in terms of making a business decision and executing on that.
Excellent. All right, Ben, I'm going to give you a chance to sort of bring it all together. And in particular, follow up on what Joey asked. This was actually a question we got from the app, and this is going to be a two-part question. Joey talked about these young, probably already very resilient people coming out, new salespeople. You guys all clearly have an approach to sales that doesn't involve punching people in the face with everything you're going to do for them. So how do you wrangle in those really motivated people to get them to focus on the long game, and kind of take that as a corollary of the question we talked about? In this climate, has anything changed about the discipline of sales as a whole for you? And then more importantly, what has kind of been cemented in your mind about the fundamentals that are non-negotiable for you in terms of sales process?
Yeah, certainly. We talk about empathy. I think that's one of the core pillars of successful relationships, partnerships, whether it's business or personal. I do believe now more than ever, Noah mentioned this, Joey's mentioned this, Matt, sales is built on a process, right? So a mutual plan that he talked about. We have mutual plans. We're setting an agenda. Like these are process-oriented, check the box, stage 1 through stage 5. Being disciplined to do that, to figure out what the compelling event is, to provide value. It's all hinged in a process, right? Which is on a piece of paper or 2 pieces of paper. And you have to be disciplined. Like there's a lot of, it's gone dark. They've gone dark. Okay, let's go back to where we were in the last engagement point. Let's go back to where we were from a touch point perspective. Did we have a mutual plan? Did we identify problems and pain points? Are we using MEDDIC, which is our qualification philosophy here within the organization? And are we running our process? We try to keep people, back in line.
All right, I think Ben just had a bandwidth issue.
Oh no!
So if he comes back, it'll be on.
Jay hit the button. It's too long.
Hey, sorry, Ben, you actually did get throttled there, and it was.
Did I really?
To do with it.
It happened.
It was great. It was great though. We'll see if we can recreate that for the tape. One of the things that I've observed is you all. I don't think this is just a natural thing that this type of a group would get along so well. So we talked about what you guys call the Cro Alliance, and I'd like to hear more about that in the last minute. So Joey, give us a little bit on what that is.
Yeah, we started the Cro Alliance. I think we're about 4 or 5 months in, and it's just really where we think even pre-COVID, what we were looking at is collective value-add selling as partners, and realistically knowing that each one of us adds a good, solution to what a lot of the pain points are. Like I said, you have thousands of pain points, and how can we sometimes approach those together as partners? And I think our people within our industry will appreciate that we've been able to partner together and work on some deals together, and it's been very helpful to get advice. It wound up turning to that initial approach versus going through COVID, being there and talking through our situations on everything that we just outlined the last hour, like how we're dealing with everything, and being a good friend and advice, and what we can share with each other, and how our companies are dealing with the crisis. So it's been a really good support group in the sense. And obviously, we'll make it more of collective or partnership type selling in the future, but you'll see more from this group. Looking forward to, thank you for hosting our first panel together, Jay, and you'll hear more from this group for sure. I can promise you.
All right, so Mike's back on, so he either wants us to stop talking or he wants to participate in the last around the horn. So Mike?
No, I'm good. You guys want to keep on going? Let's go. Let's keep it going. I just was gonna be here for your resource if you needed it.
Excellent. So let's do it around the horn real quick. All right. We skipped this one earlier because I was sensitive to the time. But let's go good habits versus bad habits that started during quarantine. And you've been assigned, so you should be prepared. Ben, you seem like a good guy. Let's talk about a good habit that you started in quarantine.
Good habit is I've picked back up my running, right?
Mm-hmm.
So physical sort of stress relief. I used to run a lot and kind of got out of it with the newborn in the house, but I've picked that back up and it's helped a lot.
All right, Noah, you look like a bad boy, so give us a bad habit.
Well, it's pretty much the opposite of that, which is lack of working out and high consumption.
All right. Okay. Matt, give us a good habit.
I don't want to be the same as Ben, but I think it's just work-life balance has been a lot easier to manage, not balancing trains, planes, and automobiles right now. So showing up to work at a desk or, within 100 feet of wherever I'm standing right now every day of the week makes it a little easier to step away and get some exercise or mental refresh. So I've appreciated that.
All right. And the original bad boy, Joey, what's a bad habit?
Well, actually, I think I agree with Matt to the point, but also for me, I've been glued to like the Matrix. It's been hard for me to walk away sometimes, just constantly doing more, staying on more calls, staying up later, just being addicted to the screen. And also just found a lot more Ben and Jerry's in my life. So just eating a ton more ice cream. And but Mike, thanks for jumping on. I think you struck gold with Jay as a moderator. He's going to be high in demand for future panels to come, my friend.
This is my head exploding, right? Yeah,
That's been great.
So I'll participate and I'm going to start with bad and end with good. Early on in the quarantine, I learned that in North Carolina, if you buy more than 8 liters of alcohol at a time, you have to have a permit to transport it to your home. So later in quarantine, I transitioned to where Ben is with health, and I have been. It's actually really motivating to get up and start working out. So I start every day with either a workout and a walk or a really long walk. And just last week, I didn't have a workout, so I went like 6.5 miles just walking, and it's really motivating to start to feel your body change. So we went beginning maybe a little bit too much alcohol consumption. And then later on, maybe a little too much exercise, and we're going to try and settle it in there in the middle. So, Mike, obviously we had a lot of fun both preparing for this and then on the panel itself. So we appreciate the invitation. Hope the folks who were tuned in got their questions answered and learned a little something. So again, we just thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys for being a part of it. I mean, it's a very unique experience to have sales leaders from all these different organizations come on and talk about their approach through these challenging times, because it's not, maybe it should be the way sales is done on a regular basis, even outside of this pandemic. But it really sort of focused and forced everyone to be more empathetic and listen to people, as Ben, you mentioned. So it was really great to listen to you guys all today. If anybody has questions for any of you, they can reach out via the app, of course, or reach out to you directly and check out that Cro Alliance with you, Joey Liner. So again, thank you all for joining. It was really a pleasure to listen to you guys, and everyone attending. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Mike.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.